Hello, it's the first video in a good while, and it's my BDSP Premier League season again. Since the last one, I've played 4 more games. This is going to include 2 of them. The other 2, I won one, lost one, couldn't be fucked to upload either of them. So here we are in my game for the last week of the league portion of it before it goes into playoffs, which is against Realistic Waters, who is a really, really strong lower tiers player. And what's also interesting is that after this game, both of our teams made the semi-finals, and so I face him again the week after. So to quickly go over the initial kind of matchup and the prep that we both did, because we've both been looking at each other's replays and what we've bought so far. I bought Sneasel because I knew that he is a very big Dusk Noir, Gligar, and Jinx enjoyer, and Sneasel offensively pressures the fuck out of all of those. It's not saying that much because Dusk Noir, Gligar, and Jinx are 3 of the top mons in the tier, but it's still a pattern, and I'm kind of rewarded for that, as there is a Gligar and a Dusk Noir, and generally a team that Sneasel is really nice into. I reckon Swords Dance Life Orb probably would have been better than Choice Band, which he can kind of pivot around, and I'm not making progress if he gets right, but it's still nice. Then I've got a Bulk Up Poliwrath to kind of help fill out the offensive side of the team before the rest of it is a bit more kind of balanced defensively type spines, because I felt like I was bringing similar offense every time, and so I could branch out a bit into a balance, whereas Waters is generally a big balance spammer, and that's kind of what we see again here. I've got Grumpig plus Spadef Whiscash, so I feel I'm very Typhlosion proof. Pelipper is because it's better into Dusk Noir than Gligar is, because it doesn't mind being burnt, and it can still knock the Dusk Noir off and fish for Scald Burns. Most of the time Gligar is better, but in a specific Dusk Noir counter-teaming type way, I felt that Pelipper worked here. So with that, we're going to get into it, as it's on very fast for some reason. So I lead Grumpig on their Abomasnow, and the reason I do that is because I'm fast and I'm carrying the Taunt, and I'm just kind of thinking, okay, well, I don't want you to have an Aurora Veil. Nasty Plot Skuntank and a potential Swords Dance Agility type Kingler are both pretty scary behind that, because Kingler, Poliwrath does kind of sit on it, but I wouldn't really be able to damage it very much back behind an Aurora Veil. I just didn't want it to happen, okay? So that's the lead, and then they go Skuntank on my Taunt, and that's kind of a problem with Grumpig, is it lets in the omnipresent Skuntank really, really easily. Don't like that, but is what it is. And the Taunt is kind of nice because it means that I don't really have to worry about like a Toxic or a Nasty Plot or any of that kind of stuff. And I can just, I think it's Miltank I go into. I can just go into, Miltank really freely as they go Gligar, which is good from them because it means that you just get a very free knockoff in exchange for letting me get the rocks, and you can also have your own rocks. So do we just exchange rocks? Yeah, we exchange rocks, and then the next turn, I'm going for a Body Slam, which obviously bounces off, but the thought process was, if I can paralyze it, then that'd be really nice. It's relatively free to fish for, and I don't really have anyone else that wants to lose their item. And I was also thinking, paralyze the Gligar, then Sneasel is a lot more free to just click Throat Chop every time, because as well as get it right that you have to come in on a Throat Chop, you also have to not get paralyzed. It would just be good. I don't know why I'm trying to so deeply explain that a mon being paralyzed would be helpful for me. Don't think I really need to, but there you go. And I go for a very passive Milk Drink there, really. Probably could have Body Slammed again, but then they go Dusk Noir, and I whiff the Body Slam into it, but I don't really care because I'm thinking, whatever, I have Pelipper for this very moment. I don't need to predict you because I'm not worried about you. And so I am just going to go into the Pelipper taking 25 as you see why Gligar is better, absorbing the burn, and then giving me a reasonably free knockoff. And so I can take its leftovers, that's pretty good. But then the problem we have is that you can just kind of sit here and keep clicking Nightshade and just waste all of my roosts. And we just kind of get into this repetitive little sequence where I'm thinking, okay, well, I know that I need to make the kind of change and shake it up here because he can just keep sitting and clicking. I probably should have defogged rather than scolded again here, but I was thinking, fish for the burn, I will be vibing. Even though from the Nightshade plus Will-O-Wisp, I probably should have surmised it's rest. I don't need to status it. That just didn't click to me at the time for whatever reason. So I go for the burn. And I'll just speed this up a bit for now because it's not desperately exciting. More of the same. I'm running low on roosts and I'm not even that healthy because I'm taking 36, 37 a turn with the Nightshades, and I fucking finally defog. Great. As they rest. And I was feeling as if, okay, well, I can just sort of hit into you and keep you a bit low. But then rest talk, they pull the Nightshade still. That's kind of annoying. Boost again. And then they just pull another Nightshade, which sucks for me because now they've woken up and are almost completely fine, and I wasn't even able to get Pelipper healed up out of it. Probably could have gone into Grumpig, which we've learned by now it can't really touch. But I think I was thinking that if you burn it, then I'm never recovering the entire game, and my Grumpig had just kind of fucked, so I kind of see why I did what I did, but equally, we're at a kind of impasse that only benefits him, and I've got to do something to shake up, so maybe letting Grumpig take that hit would have been fine. Now I go Grumpig, as we can bring it back to slow again, and I go for the Taunt, which is just thinking, okay, well, let's make sure to A, keep this low-ish, and B, stop it from burning me, because I'd rather get Nightshaded than burnt, because I can just sort of heal it back up again. That would all be nice. And then I go Pelipper here, expecting to just absorb a knockoff and be able to roost up from it. But Waters makes a really nice play in just U-turning to keep the momentum, which makes sense because you'd almost rather just U-turn, get free skunk in, get to hit something, make progress somehow. That's almost better than getting rid of the leftovers on the Grumpig, which you realistically don't really care about because it lets a skunk in every time. And then a Abomasnow is going to come out. And I have got a Spadef Miltank, so I'm not too bothered. It is Sap Sipper instead of Thick Fat, as we still take a decent bit from that hit, which is because it just sort of patches up the problems with a lot of grass types that this team otherwise has. And I stand by it being Sap Sipper, but it isn't very good for me here. I take that hit, and I just get the rocks up on the switch. And then I body slam again. And this is, in fact, more so than the previous one. This was a fucking terrible body slam. Because I was just thinking, okay, you're probably going to go for rocks and then go Dusknoir, so I can fish with the slam once and then heal up on the Dusknoir, and I'm getting some kind of progress. But Waters is just going to U-turn again, and that's leaving my Miltank really low. And it was another just kind of bad risk assessment from me. Like, by body slamming, I risked the U-turn and something coming in on my very low Miltank. So that wasn't brilliant from me, as Hail was also going to happen. Skunk is back in, and that lets me go Whiscash on the defog. And then here, Abomasnow comes in on Whiscash absolutely forever. There's nothing a Whiscash can do. So I go, okay, I need to get my Miltank healthy. I've speed crept Abomasnows on my Miltank, so I can make the double, and I can then just Milk Drink up, get my rocks, and it'll just be happy days as we keep this just kind of pivoting around. I call that. That works. But then what I failed to account for is fucking Choice Scarf Abomasnow, and I die, and now I can't get rocks up. This is going to be a really tough game. It's not impossible still, because Sneasel is really, really good, but I've just shot myself in the foot, and it's just me being stupid, really. Like, of course I should have scouted to see if it's Scarf. I had a whole Grumpig that I could have gone into that is thick fat and wouldn't have taken very much. I should have done that, but it just didn't occur to me. I just completely tunnel visioned on the Abomasnow being Aurora Veil, even though like his team composition, Aurora Veil teams tend to be like full hyper offense, which this isn't. But that didn't click to me at the time, and I throw out my Miltank, and I have fucked it. I then go Grumpig instead of Sneasel. Science will never be able to tell you why I didn't just go Sneasel there. But I am able to make that double, and I get Poliwrath in on Kingler, which is something. That's kind of nice, that's a decent position. But then I make the second immense head scratcher of a play, which is I very ambitiously decide that I'm going to try and catch the Dusknoir, but that was really stupid. As we see, the Kingler just stays in and knocks off. And it makes perfect sense, because Kingler is never beating me while there's a Poliwrath here, but you're also not taking loads back, so you can just take the leftovers off it. And I think I had calced that after Hail, Banded Sneasel was killing. But again, I'm just risking my Wincon so much for so little gain. That was terrible. Like, I'll just put the rest onto fast, because the game does go on for a bit longer, but the gist of it is just I threw out my Wincon and then I'm fucked. He does make a little bit of a throw here, which is that he forgets that Abomasnow Scarf is still slower than Sneasel by a point, and so he just sacks it. So that's kind of cool, and that's me a bit back in the game. But even then, Typhlosion comes in, Spadef Whiscash answers it forever, as it has done every week that I've bought it. Except it's fucking Power Herb Solar Beam, which is really, really good for Phantom Waters. I bought Whiscash every week. It makes perfect sense to go Power Herb Solar Beam. Fair enough to him. Just didn't occur to me at all, and I get blown up, and now I like even more intensely lose than I already did. Again, you probably should be going Grumpig to Scout, but it just... If Scarf Abomasnow didn't click to me, that absolutely never clicked to me. Whiscash goes down. Now we're even more fucked. He even stays in to Solar Beam again as I go Poliwrath. This just isn't the one. Don't ask why it's Power Gem. That wasn't a good set. And yeah, we've just kind of got some more floundering around. I go Sneasel because I feel like I just have to force progress, see if he like taunts or something. He switches around, pivoting on the things that resist, and I probably could have made the prediction here, but just didn't really end up mattering that deeply. Grumpig comes in and kills, then Gligar, instead of Skuntank, comes in, lose my shit, and for the second time, don't ask why it's Power Gem. It probably shouldn't be. Typhlosion's back in. It even lives a waterfall, gets a Solar Beam, and here, I'm just kind of going, okay, Poliwrath, I'm going to need you to dodge a million Will-O-Wisps and flinch like 20 times in a row. I get the bulk up, I dodge a Will-O-Wisp, now I need flinches, but I do not get it, and I'm burnt, and that is the game. And I keep going a couple turns just because like it's a team tournament. I feel as if I can get 10 billion flinches in a row, I need to go for it for the team. But that doesn't really end up working. And I end up losing the game. What is a shame is that I really wanted to be substitute Poliwrath. So sub-bulk up dual stab. But I felt that I needed to have Earthquake on it because otherwise my team's really weak to Toxicroak and to Quillfish. And I do stand by that. in the same way that I stand by the Miltank being Sap Sipper. But it was a little bit unfortunate there in that just those kinds of prep things that did make sense, just kind of still disadvantaged me. But then I can't use that as an excuse because fundamentally I fucked it. I prepped reasonably well and the game was there for the taking, I would say, but I fucked it. Nevertheless, I get a chance to redeem myself the following week in the semis. And this time I'm going for a more tried and true me NU offense with the same tested and true P2 plus Gligar plus Scyther combination that I really, really like. Except this is a slightly spicier P2. This is, instead of the usual specs, this guy is Silk Scarf, Fly Attack, Shadow Ball, Recover, Agility. And it's quite bulky, more so than your usual P2s, because you only need 100 speed to outspeed a Sneasel after Agility. So I did that, max special attack, and the rest is in HP. And between that and Recover, it has way more longevity than you expect a P2 to have, and that's pretty cool. On Waters' side, he kind of sees that Sneasel was so good last game, and so brings Poliwrath plus Regirock to just absolutely ruin a Sneasel's day. But I kind of get that right. I figure that you're not going to bring Lose to Sneasel twice, so let's just not bother with a Sneasel on my part. I've got a site. Yeah, words. Sorry. On top of the core of three, I've got a Jinx, which is the Sash, Nasty Plot, Lovely Kiss, Dual Stab, just best mon in the tier. What else is there to say? Then I have a Lantern for general kind of pivoting and a bit of bulk type deal. And then lastly, we have a slightly unorthodox pick of a Relicanth, who I essentially just wanted an offensive Stealth Rocker that's a bit better into Quillfish than a Regirock would have been. And I also noticed that Waters doesn't really tend to bring rock resist, and so I thought that Head Smash could be quite nice, but unfortunately there is a Poliwrath there, which is going to just completely spoil any Relicanth's day. And I'm thinking for this game, I mostly just need to weaken the Regirock a lot and the Skunk a bit, and then I can start getting Porygon 2 agilitied up on something like the Gligar or maybe even the Skuntank or the Scyther, because you can take a hit off those. So, as it's still on fast, we'll slow that down. Because my team's so weak to Stealth Rocks, I figured that Waters would want to just get them up immediately. And so I go Gligar because on a Regirock, you just get a really free knockoff. And that's exactly what happens as I get to knock off the Poliwrath leftovers, which is actually really nice for Relicanth, and I need damage on it because Silk Scarf P2 doesn't really have enough to kill it off the bat. So that's a really nice start, but then I even out the really nice start by shitting myself turn 2. I take a Scald, it does 83, and I U-turn out. So that's because I was thinking, okay, well, if I go Jinx on a Scald or a Waterfall or whatever, that's amazing for me. I'm in an amazing position. But I was thinking that's such a good position that Waters might not let me. And I just kind of got so transfixed on, okay, well, I can't go Jinx because that's a big risk, that the mid-ground alternative of going Lantern didn't even seem to occur to me. I think maybe I didn't want to get bulked up on an Earthquake or something like that, but Lantern isn't that good this game. So it's not answering very much, so I don't desperately need it to begin with. And you never bulk, if you're not Scolding because you don't want to let Jinx in, then you never bulk up to just as easily let Jinx in. So that was really fucking stupid, and if I got burnt, then I'd have been fucked. But I kind of just about get away with it because I'm not burnt. And so if I can get it in on something slower like Regirock later, I can boost back up and be fine. Gligar was so important this game. Why did I fucking do that? Abysmal. Anyway, I U-turn out and I get in Jinx. And yeah, at least I'm taking the hit on Gligar, but now I have the big threat in. So I nasty plot up, and then I put it to sleep, which, again, amazing. And I Ice Beam and it kills, which I didn't think that killed. I believe it is dependent on if you're a fast or a bulky skunk, but I probably still should have been calcing that. I didn't need to sleep it to begin with, if that killed. But it works out. Dead skunk. Amazing. And what perhaps should have occurred to me that didn't is that if the skunk was defog, then if I get rocks up, then his Scyther is fucked. So that's also pretty nice, but that kind of passes over my head at the time. Scyther comes out, and it's obviously going to U-turn out, bring me down to my sash, but I end up just deciding, okay, well, I basically get another kill because no one's switching in, so let's just take my kill, because it's going to be probably quite hard to get Jinx to set up again later in the game. So, U-turn, in comes Poliwrath, and I kill it. And that's really nice for Relicanth, because Head Smash plus Waterfall is really strong into his whole team now. Poliwrath goes down, Scyther comes back out, and I just go Lantern. Essentially as a sack, I learn from that damage that it's a choice banded Scyther, and the Victory Bell comes in. And the situation here is, of my things that could come in, Scyther, if I go in, I can U-turn out, I get the momentum straight back, I obviously absorb a Leaf Storm really easily, but I'm thinking, again, that's so obvious that you can Sleep Powder here quite freely if you want to, or even something like a Sludge Bomb, because a Lantern's not especially damaging you. So I end up deciding, okay, let's not risk that. Lantern's shit anyway. I can just sack it, that's fine. So it's kind of half sack, half you could overpredict here, but I dodge a Leaf Storm, it works out for me. I can Volt Switch out, that's really, really good for me. Again, I was trying to sack it, so I don't think it's that important, but it does still just mean I have an extra sack now for later, even if Lantern's not contributing anything else. Scyther, U-turn, very, very free. If they stayed in there, then I probably had to just go back into Lantern and sack it again, which is kind of funny, but you never stay in there. So, the U-turn on Regirock is great, because it lets me bring the Gligar back in, and I outspeed, and I can roost up. Very, very cool. Except, I shit myself again. But it works out again. I knock off here, and Stone Edge killed me, if it was Stone Edge. We later see his Rock Slide, but I didn't know that at the time. If I knocked off the leftovers, and I died, then I don't have a way to immediately kill the Regirock. The rocks go up, my Jinx is dead on the switch in, my Scyther's taking 50. I think I'm a better player than this, but I am kind of shitting myself. I suppose it could just be sort of nerves from my first time being in this kind of situation, but that's another mistake that does kind of work out as we take the Scarf off the Victory Bell, but it does mean I need to get Gligar in on Regirock again later to heal it up. Taking the Scarf, which makes sense when the Scyther is choice banded, as we know. And this time, I'm again thinking, okay, well, Scyther on Leaf Storm would be obvious. You probably don't let me do that again. So I can just catch the Sleep Powder on the Lantern and then pivot Scyther. And that's exactly what I do. And I kind of feel like you can Sludge Bomb there pretty easily. But words. Yeah, I think you can Sludge Bomb pretty easily instead of Leaf Storming, in that the Lantern's asleep, it'd have to pull Volt Switch anyway. Not that likely. But I was thinking, okay, well, I live a Sludge Bomb, and I don't need HP on this for anything, because I died to Scyther, I died to Regirock, I don't want to be attacking into Gligar anyway. It's not that important, I can just take the hit and get in. And I'm able to just take my kill on the Victory Bell, very cool. Lets me get Gligar back in, just for another round of leftovers, really. And then Banded Scyther is going to be enough to kill me, so I just go Lantern, essentially on the sack. They bring in their Regirock because if they want a chance at this, they're going to have their rocks up, kill my Jinx, weaken my Scyther, etc. Also, you may notice at this point that his Gligar hasn't come out at all, and we'll see why that is in a bit. So I go Gligar on the rocks, and I can just defog it very freely, take not very much damage from a Drain Punch, which is trying to catch my Roost. And then I'm able to take the Regirock's leftovers, which is so good for Porygon 2. That's brilliant. I'm going to be able to wear it down. And now we get into this kind of sequence, which is essentially just me getting Gligar healed up and getting rid of rocks. And it's a really good sequence for me, because what it's resulting in is Gligar is healthy again. Regirock has lost its leftovers. It's just all good for me. And so I can even just start knocking off into it for tiny, tiny bits of chip at a time. This is all really nice. But what the imperative thing here is that I need to keep rocks off the field for my Jinx and for my Scyther. So we see that kind of keeping on happening, and eventually the Regirock would win because it has more rocks than it has defogs, than I have defogs. But that's not for ages. I can continue in this sequence for a really long time if I want to. I can just take my tiny bits of chip over and over again. And then I fumble the bag. Then I U-turn into Relicanth, essentially just kind of getting impatient. And I think it's a weakness of my play, I think, quite a big one, is that in those kinds of sequences, I kind of get lulled into sort of losing concentration or losing sight of what exactly I have to do, maybe not mapping it out in my head as well as I possibly could. So I just go Relicanth thinking, okay, well, if we're going to sit here all day, let's force progress. But the key thing here, which is really important, is that by doing this, I can kill the Regirock, but I'm killing it and rocks are staying up, and I have to find another opportunity for Gligar to defog, which its easiest possible time defogging is on the Regirock, and we're going to see that in a bit. So I just Waterfall, get a crit, that's kind of cool, and I get paralyzed. And I did have Substitute on the Regirock, but the problem there is that Drain Punch is more likely to break the sub than not. I didn't just want to give it back HP, but I think it probably was still worth going for, because I can dodge the Thunder Wave. If it doesn't get broken, I'm in a really nice position. Then I can flinch it down. Then I basically win. But as is, I get paralyzed. And here, I take a Drain Punch, and I'm going to just Waterfall again. But again, this is kind of a fumbling of the bag, really. This is letting the rocks stay up and getting something else in for waters. And the first Waterfall was kind of fine. I really should have gone Gligar afterwards to get the defog again. And you're probably thinking, okay, well, that doesn't really matter still. You're 6-2 up, even with small mistakes. But just bear with me, as the Scyther is gonna just Aerial Ace, get that kill, as I'm gonna go Gligar, thinking, okay, well, I can kind of just stall you out. This is all pretty whatever. As I just roost it off, and I'm trying to get healthy enough that after a knockoff, I'll be able to live banded into regular Aerial Ace. Now, for the first time this game, Waters goes Gligar, and the rocks are up. And we're going to see how this gets kind of hairy. So, Gligar shows the sword stats. Now, that's kind of bad. Now it agilities, as I U-turn out. And I go into my P2. Now, here, the entire game just comes down to, can my P2 survive a +2 acrobatics? Because if he can't, then everyone else is outsped and killed, apart from Scyther, who can't even kill it with a crit. So that's kind of awkward. So I'm basically just praying that my bulky P2 is enough, because if I fumble the bag from here, that's career ending. I'd have to retire. I'd have to go and play Digimon. It'd be awful. So, moment of truth. Bulky P2 survives on 7. And that was actually a roll. It was, I believe the roll is 85 to 101. So there's a very small chance I could die. But I could also have been crit on top of that. Still in my favour, but more unlikely things have happened in this game. But I get the kill. On a regular, just fast and special attack Porygon 2, the roll is 99 minimum. So, not for the reason I was expecting it to. My kind of new, different P2 set absolutely fucking saved my ass. And so, even though I made 3 or 4, like, decent-sized mistakes that game, I'm just about able to see it out. Scyther comes in, kills the P2, but P2 has done his job, and my Scarf Scyther is able to come in and revenge. And so I take a very nervy game by the fucking skin of my teeth. Jesus Christ. And so I won that game, pulled it back to 1-2 from us to the other team. But then in the end, we didn't quite get it over the line. We were ultimately knocked out in the semis. And so with that ends my tour, in which I went 3 for 2, which it is only a side tour. It's not like the absolute strongest set of opposition you'd ever face, but I'm still happy with how I did for a first timer to any kind of tour that got bought for the minimum possible price as a punt. And more importantly, it was just generally quite a fun time. I feel I understand this meta a lot better. I've even ended up voting on the viability rankings for it, which is very cool. I hope it was also fun to watch. Thanks for watching. Bye.